CitizenCon will be the biggest event of 2024 in terms of huge updates that will impact the Star Citizen universe. It is the only time of the year when CIG reveals features they normally do not disclose on a typical Star Citizen live update. The big question is what to expect. I will be sharing my top 7 expectations I hope CIG will address this upcoming CitizenCon. I just want to make a quick note that I personally think server meshing and Pyro will probably not be a subject this year, mainly because server meshing and Pyro is pretty much public to the players right now for testing. Players are actively testing server meshing and currently getting constant feedback on progress of server meshing from CIG. So there really isn't anything new to show for Pyro and server meshing this year. Therefore, I will be leaving it out of the list. As we all know, Chris Roberts announced last year that Squadron 42 was 100% feature complete, and the only issues CIG currently faces are bug fixes and game polishing. Not only this, but 2024 is the year that Chris said that the majority of the development team would be focusing on finishing Squadron 42, which left a lot of fans upset. However, we did get a lot of Squadron 42 UI features as well as persistent hangars, so this year was not a complete loss. That being said, Squadron 42 has to be one of the most anticipated events at CitizenCon this year. I personally believe the release date is needed and necessary. Not only fans are dying for it, I personally have a digital download myself, but it also means writers can focus on more important things like Star Citizen's story. Squadron 42 is the prequel to Star Citizen timeline, so no doubt Star Citizen's story arc is currently limited because the Star Citizen story cannot proceed until Squadron 42 has been concluded. When Squadron 42 is released, we can focus on the aftermath within the world of Star Citizen. So this year, I'm hoping to see more previews of Squadron 42's storyline and possibly more features. And if we are lucky, maybe we can get a cameo visit from Mark Hamill. I definitely feel Squadron 42 will probably be the highlight of CitizenCon, and it is, after all, what the original backers wanted and has been wanting way before Star Citizen. It's been a while since CIG mentioned prosthetics, which is why I believe this is something they may cover in this upcoming CitizenCon 2024. The last time they mentioned this was 3 years ago, believe it or not. Also, medical bays have been around since then, and I believe prosthetics will be the next evolutionary step for medical tech. Don't get me wrong, there are still so many issues we are facing when it comes to prosthetics and accidental deaths in the verse. So having this feature for medical purposes would be a bit unfair. It would be nice if players could at least have the choice to use prosthetics for testing purposes, or create a time limit that allows the user to go back to their natural form, or simply allow the user to do a particular account reset to reset their appearance to a default appearance. I believe there are many ways CIG can implement the prosthetic features for testing without completely implementing the death of a spaceman. Base building is one of the biggest exclusive features CIG introduced 3 years ago at CitizenCon. Some of the things I found fascinating were the tools CIG used to build and decorate houses and colonies. Now, the demo I saw 2 years ago at CitizenCon showed designers placing chairs and tables down inside colonies in third-person perspective. Since we now have a grid system, we'll be connected in a spatial grid, which is quite different from what they demonstrated in CitizenCon 2021. CIG has many times shown a completely different way of how they were going to approach a feature and then turn around and do something completely different. So we don't know what to expect. I just hope that base building is mentioned this year. The economy is somewhat the glue of Star Citizen. What I mean by the glue is it will be the thing that triggers system events and not just controls the supply and the demand. Now right now we have events like Blockade and Xenothreat, and they are currently mainly controlled by the developers. This will not always be the case. These events will eventually be triggered by the game and not by CIG manually. For example, if a space station is constantly losing visitors on an everyday basis, Eventually they will lose profit and have to cut down on the staff. Some of that staff will be security. Therefore, they will lose the ability to properly pay for security. So eventually the space station will run down. The economy system will know this and will trigger events like pirate blockades to trigger more players to protect or attack the base, or create a high-risk mission for players to protect the base from pirates. The economy will balance some of these struggling systems to attract more players to come. This is essentially why Star Citizen is not a true sandbox like most games like EVE. The economy will dynamically change to keep players engaged, and ultimately the events will be automated through AI if you think about it. I'm not saying CIG will use true AI, but CIG is building a system that knows how to balance quests based on how players interact with the world. Dynamic universe simulation is not only about balancing the economy, it is also about triggering events and missions based on fluctuation of the economy. This is the main feature that allows players to make an impact in the universe based on missions and events. It would be nice to see more in-game detailed demos of how the new economy will work and how it will trigger in-game universe events. Moving on. Now, to be honest, I came from a planet-side background growing up. I got into Star Citizen because of the FPS aspect more than I did the space combat. I remember during the early stages of development, CIG focused way more on ship combat than FPS, and it kind of upset me. But now it seems it has become the opposite, where CIG has been putting more love on FPS than ship combat. That doesn't make me upset, but I do feel bad for space pilots out there that got into SE more for the spaceflight. That's why I believe data mining and hacking could bring another revenue for space combat missions to make things interesting for players who don't necessarily want to haul cargo and mine all the time. Bringing data mining and hacking into the game could create escort missions to even protect NPCs while they're hacking or data mining. Roads. Where we're going, we won't need no roads. But in SE, we do. We got the rivers, we got the distribution centers. Now all we need is roads and bridges to connect them all together. CIG previously mentioned that river technology that is used to move through the terrain will be the same technology used to build roads to move through the terrain. Roads are another revenue of missions, air and land alike. Just imagine doing a convoy mission where you have both land and air combat vehicles protecting shipment moving from one distribution center to another. Yes, please. I really hope roads are announced because the technology is there. Now, people are probably going to say, Gordo, is this really essential? And I have to say, yes. NPC crews open so much more potential to missions, including VIP missions, where you have to rescue an NPC and bring them back to a space station. You could essentially implement Counter-Strike-like game mechanics where counter-terrorists have to rescue hostages while terrorists have to defend. Not to mention, when NPCs are able to properly navigate a ship, this will also allow for NPC crews to be more plausible. This type of gameplay, I believe, could bridge the gap between FPS gameplay and space combat gameplay by setting stages and missions. One stage could be to rescue. The second stage of the mission would be doing a dogfight to fight your way out of incoming pursuers. And then the third stage could be bringing them back and protecting the remaining wave. Adding stages and missions increase risk and difficulty, which will ultimately lead to bigger rewards. Just think about it. Imagine a mission where you have to take on waves of NPCs who drop off soldiers from drop ships from every direction. If you can think of GTA's survival mode, where the key is surviving wave after wave of attacks, that is somewhat where I'm getting at. NPCs having the ability to board and exit vehicles can allow for complex missions outside of just a crew, but witnessing how a NPC enemy crew would behave from air to ground scenario and vice versa. Also, improving NPCs' behavior in spaceflight would make it easier to follow NPCs in different locations using quantum sync jumps. NPC interaction is what I'm looking forward to the most outside the economy. It will also be a way to give depth to the Star Citizen universe storyline once Squadron 42 is released. I feel the closer we can get to the release of Squadron 42, the more Squadron 42 writers can start focusing on stories around the sequel of Squadron 42, which is Star Citizen. And hopefully whatever NPC interactions we have in Squadron 42, we can bring a little of that over to Star Citizen. And that is it. Those are the things I'm looking forward to the most. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And don't be afraid to leave a comment. I am Anthony Gordo, aka Starlord, saying stay safe in the verse.